preparation today. And as Zoom tells, we will record this. We will record this meeting because many are interested in it, and not everybody has had the chance or has the chance to join us today. And therefore, if you don't like it, then sorry. Then you have to go out. And when you say, okay, it's okay for me and it's okay for us, then warm welcome and thank you very much that you join us. Yeah, the club, CEOs for Future, is very active, and we have many subjects and many initiatives. And now I want to hand over to our president, Kraft-Kinz. Karl, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Birgit. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome from my side as well to this event, organized by Sabine Aigner from Spencer Stuart for CEOs for Future. We know that we are in the middle of a transformation for the economy and society. And after this summer of catastrophes concerning climate change, and after the global problems with Corona and all the difficulties to get the resources we need for production and for consumption as well, and after all social problems, it is clear that we have to speed up this transformation. It is a hard job for all of us, for everybody, but for many CEOs. And of course, it is necessary to see the benefit of our actions. But how is it possible to link the personal benefit with the benefit for the company and the benefit for society, the advantage for the only planet that we do have? We need a bonification for sustainability. So I'm looking forward to listen to you and to see how a bonification for sustainability can work. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Karl. And now I hand over to Xavier. You made the study, and yeah, and it's your turn to give us some inputs, and then we start into all this big item and this subject. Xavier, please.
Okay, hello, good evening to everyone. Very glad to be here with you. And I have to say, I really like the title of this webinar being the Bonification for Sustainability. Now, maybe brief introduction on myself. So I'm a professor and partner at Vlerick Business School. And I work in the fields of rewards as well as sustainability. And for a couple of years, people were asking me, but what the hell is the link between sustainability and rewards? But I think it's becoming clearer and clearer over the last couple of years. So what I want to do with you is a couple of things. Well, I'm mainly going to share results from research we have done on how you can translate sustainability into incentive systems. But I'm also going to take a step backward, asking ourselves, does it make sense to do this? Because I know that there is quite a lot of pressure also from investors, from the public at large, from society, to move to what we call ESG indicators. I'm also going to take a look at whether that makes sense. And I'm going to provide you with quite some examples because you are going to see that business practice differs. I'm going to provide you with a benchmark. And what I'm also going to do, the cherry on the cake, let's say, is provide you or bring the synthesis of the results of your input. So we have more than 40 out of you who have participated in the preliminary survey, and that leads to a couple of great results. So I hope that this works. I hope that all of you can now see my screen. Yes, I see. Great. Now, maybe also part of the introduction. So I work at Vlerick Business School, which is a business school, as you know, business schools. But within our business school, we also have developed a center. It's called the Executive Remuneration Research Center. So where we have a specific focus also together with companies on doing studies in the field of executive pay. And as you see it being mentioned, our ambition, we need to have a vision and an ambition, is helping companies and boards on the road to executive reward policies, which are, and the three are very important, societally accepted, strategically aligned, and fair. And I think it's really much easier said than done in order to have that strategic alignment, but also societal acceptance, and also they need to be considered to be fair and motivating by the top executives. In fact, it's one of our ambitions, let's call it, to develop the principles of responsible executive rewards, which you see over here. But then our inroad is from these three dimensions, the strategic one, which is the alignment and the focus on long-term value creation. We also want to focus, and that is something which is frequently forgotten, on the psychological dimension, because of course, executive reward policies also have an impact on executives' behavior, and last but not least, also the societal dimension. Yeah. So if you would be interested, we have developed a white paper. It counts 123 pages, providing an overview and a framework on KPIs in general, so not only the financial ones, but also the non-financial ones, with also a lot of examples included. Okay, but let's go on. So here, first of all, my first point on the agenda, categorization of sustainability KPIs, because that, of course, is a very important one, and I get lots of emails by board members, for example, asking me, yeah, we want to include sustainability KPIs. Can you provide us with a list? And yes, I can do so, but the list is rather unlimited. And that, of course, is a very important point to make your choices. From a terminology perspective, we see that, well, let's say CSR, ESG, sustainability are being used. If I look at CSR, that is corporate social responsibility, I see that this terminology in Europe is less popular compared with in the US, because it started in the US, and in the US, CSR is really something which is set apart. So we have our business where we focus on shareholder value, and then we also need to give something back to society, and that is CSR. So it's not really embedded. If I take a look at the terminology today, we see that ESG, environmental, social, and governance, is really a very important one and is quite popular. And in fact, ESG relates to indicators, relates to key performance indicators. I'm going to provide you with a couple of examples, but for me, the broader framework is sustainability. And in fact, to us, sustainability is not less or not more than long-term shareholder value creation. Now, I have provided here a list with a couple of examples. So we have the ESG, environment, social, and governance. And you see that there are quite a lot of possibilities. It would be a very bad choice to say, we are going to include all of these in incentive contracts. No, the key question, the key element is, first of all, do you already have a sustainability strategy? And then please go back to it and take a look at what is in there. What are the priorities? And then also making your choices, what is key for the company. Now, if you see here the long list, it can be about, and of course, these are the obvious ones, carbon emissions, energy efficiency, but also water use. And of course, I will provide you with the example of a brewery. Yes, in a brewery or a drinks industry, well, their water use is key, but it might not be key in all the businesses. Biodiversity, waste management, land use in some cases, but also your sourcing policy, because taking a look at the supply chain, the whole value chain is also key. You can be very energy efficient in your own factory, but what we see is that more and more also companies are looking at their supply chain. But there are other interesting ones. For example, design for sustainability. That was one of the inputs which we got from you. Okay, let's take a look at designing and at sustainability aspects in the design of our product, integration of circular solutions, and also, for example, green financing. If you take a look at the role of the CFO, okay, we have money in our company. Where are we going to put it? Where are we going to invest it in? That is also an element which is related to ESG. On the social side, of course, and this is an obvious one, we have employee engagement, other employee-related indicators, the most prevalent ones today, health and safety, engagement, and diversity. Of course, a very obvious one is consumer satisfaction. Other interesting ones from a social perspective is, for example, responsible marketing. If in companies that focus a lot of their marketing also in children, that can be an important one. Community relations, human rights in general, and human rights in the supply chain. But also more and more today, we see, if you look at financial services sector, but also others, the element of privacy and the element of data security. And then an element which is frequently forgotten in ESG is the governance element. What we see here, for example, is the leadership of the top management team, the quality of the leadership, the collaboration within the leadership, succession planning, the board composition also related to diversity, risk management policies, competitive behavior and compliance. And what you already see here is I wanted to provide you, and that is my main objective, with inspiration. These are indicators you can use. Some of them might be quite obvious to you, others might be a bit more refreshing. Again, the key element is what is strategic for our company. And today we see an evolution. We see companies that say we have our strategy, and then apart from that, we have our sustainability strategy. Further in the evolution, companies tell me, no, what we do is we reach out to our stakeholders, we have a talk on value creators, and all that is embedded into our strategy. So we do not have a strategy and a sustainability strategy which are separate. Now, coming to concrete numbers, every year we do a study on executive pay in Europe, also including the UK, and there we look at the 600 largest listed firms in Europe. Now, what we have found here is, and of course, besides KPIs, we also have data on pay levels and so on. But what we do see is that today, 60% of the companies, the 600 largest companies in Europe, use ESG indicators in their short-term incentive plan, meaning the bonus plan, and only 27% use it in LTI. And that's, of course, that's already the first remarkable finding, this gap. What we also see, if we take a look at the weight of the indicators, this is quite limited. So it's 15%, and in the LTI, it's something like 11%. So we do see that companies are focusing on it. In STI, we even have a majority of them, but they are quite cautious. And that for me is a first important question. If you really want to pay attention to it, if ESG is really important, then I think we should drive up the weight. But we see here that boards are also very cautious and that they are saying, well, we should not exaggerate on it. By the way, here we see a clear difference between the practice we see today and your input. And if we take a look at the KPIs which are used, we see clearly that employee-related KPIs, being employee engagement, are the most popular ones. I will provide you, as a start of the discussion, provide you with your insights. But we see that environmental KPIs, where it is being recognized that that is the biggest challenge we have, well, this is still rather limited. So the picture today is it's increasing, but it's mainly focusing on the short-term incentive, and the weight is still, I would call it, rather marginal. So it's not that high. And then we also have to say that it is mainly based on employee-related KPIs. First example I want to share with you is a French company, Schneider Electric. I have to admit that this is considered to be the most sustainable company by Corporate Knights. Now, I know this is very dangerous, all those lists and so on, but I just want to tell you this is a company that really takes sustainability at heart. And what you see is that in their incentive plan, in the annual incentive plan, sustainability weights for 20%, but they also have a sustainability indicator in their long-term incentive plan. Yeah. And how do they do it? Well, in the short-term incentive plan, you see it here, they look at a dashboard they have. So Schneider Electric, they have a sustainability strategy, and they have something like 10 KPIs, 10 targets they set themselves. And out of that comes a score. Yeah, and depending on the score, okay, this is, well, the real score for 2020 was 9.32. So they reached the target, and okay, this is what it leads to. I just want to tell you here, weight of 20%, and not just based on one indicator from which they say, well, let's pick and choose. No, this is really the input is given by the company's sustainability dashboard. Now, what is interesting is that on top of that, Schneider Electric also look at, as it is mentioned here, on sustainability in the long-term incentive plan. And they are quite consistent in there because they say, well, we look at total shareholder return, which is a relative measure. So we look at total shareholder return comparable to our competitors. And then they say, but why do we only do that for TSR? We could also take a look at the sustainability index. So next to the long-term evolution in the share price, they look at relative to competitors. They also look at their sustainability score relative to competitors. And how do they do that? You see it here. Well, it's based, you could of course look only at the Dow Jones Sustainability Group Index. Of course, this is a listed firm, but they also take a look at a couple of other measures. So this is one possibility. But again, I want to repeat, today we see that it's very limited, the percentage of companies that you translated to LTIs. Next thing I want to do with you is I have selected 3 academic studies which are recent and which are for me highly relevant. What these studies have looked at is the impact of having sustainability KPIs on results. First of all, this study, so what is the link between having environmental targets, so a specific focus on the environment, environmental targets on the outcome, well, regarding eco-friendly products and services? Well, what happens apparently is that if companies include those environmental targets, well, then they will have a higher tendency to also develop eco-friendly products and services. What we learn from this is what gets rewarded gets done. And out of this, the authors say, well, we should have a greater emphasis on aligning executive pay with sustainability. So in fact, this clearly shows that, does it make sense to have sustainability KPIs? Yes, it does, because it seems to have an impact. Second study is focusing on, yes, but which targets? And this study has found that it is good to have quantitative hard sustainability targets. So not just saying, let's develop a sustainability strategy. No, you need to have, and I will provide you with examples, you need to have quantitative, quantifiable targets. That is what works. So having sustainability KPIs works. On top of that, please use quantifiable targets. And then the next finding, so this is also very interesting. This study has looked at, okay, what is the impact in fact of sustainability KPIs? Well, apparently there is a long-term impact. So the impact does not come directly, because of course this is related to investments in eco-friendly solutions and so on. It has positive effects in the 3rd year after adoption. That's the first element. And the second element I want to bring in here, and that's an interesting one, is that the existence of a sustainability committee at the board level has a positive impact. So I want to summarize these 3 studies by saying sustainability KPIs have a positive impact on environmental and sustainability performance. Yes, that is the case. However, the impact is even bigger if you use very hard and quantifiable KPIs. And the impact is also bigger if you have a sustainability committee. Now, what is the reason for that, for the last one? That is that it is, as a lot of you mentioned, it is very hard to set targets. And in a sustainability committee at the board level, we can assume that you have sustainability experts, and these people should be much more used and capable for setting those sustainability targets. So that is how apparently the research shows that it works today. I want to conclude by saying, okay, we do a lot of studies. We take a look at a lot of remuneration reports. And based on these analysis, I would like to make a distinction between 3 possibilities in order to include sustainability into KPIs, into executive incentive contracts. I call that maturity and materiality. Companies that do not yet have a well-developed strategy on sustainability, but that are saying, but I want to give a signal to my top executives that sustainability counts. There you could say, well, there it might be a good idea to take a look at an external focus, to take a look at where are we, because there are quite a lot of advisors that take a look that study company sustainability performance. So if you do not have a lot of competencies internally, if you do not yet have that clear strategy where you can make the link with your KPIs to, well, then it might be good to take a look at, okay, where are we in this sustainability landscape compared with other companies? And here what you see, of course, is, well, this is quite a limited weight. So this is how you could start. But it's very important to say, if this is just it, then it's really not enough. But it can be a good start. And that is the reason why I mentioned maturity. If you know that your company is not yet that mature in it, And there's no problem with that. The only problem is that you are not mature, but you think you are highly mature. But so the element here is, if not that mature, you can take a look at this. Second is, well, does KPI focus? You see companies that say, okay, we have very concrete targets we want to bring in. An example here, a company in the construction sector, what they say, well, within our ESG performance indicators, they have a nice mix here. So you see there is a societal dimension, of course, construction industry, workplace accident, but they also look at feminization. So these are key elements for them. Environment, ambitious strategy to conserve natural resources, and then succession planning. How do they, so this is the philosophy, how do they concretely translate this into the incentive system? Well, you see it here, the financial criteria have the highest weight, the non-financials weight for 25%. And here you see the concrete quantitative target for the environment is CDP score received by the company in the B band or higher each year. So they say we need to be in climate change in the B band or higher. Safety performance, frequency rate of workplace accidents, and then increase in the percentage of women. So these are clearly quantifiable targets. Another example here is a company that says, well, I have very concretely CO2 emissions. By the way, this is an example where it is integrated in the short-term incentive plan. Here we look at the long-term incentive plan. So here they look at a period of 3 years. They look at total shareholder return. Okay, that's the financial one. Here's CO2 emissions. So they look at the level of CO2 emissions recorded over the reference period. Yeah, and they have a target, and then they look at, okay, where are we compared with the target? And the other one is the number of women within the group's management committees. So these are already more concrete KPIs which are internally set. The next phase is what I call the holistic focus, because this really, the hard job to be done here is to say, first of all, which KPIs are we going to use? As you have seen, in a lot of companies, the weight for sustainability KPIs you can use is 15 to 20%, not more than that, which means that if you would include, for example, 4 KPIs, then each of these KPIs has a rather small weight. And then you could ask yourself from time to time, does that make sense? Yeah. So what we see, and that is for me the highest level of maturity, is companies that use a holistic focus. And for that, I want to take a first step back with you, saying, okay, what about incentive explicitness? So this is a study that has looked at what is the impact of incentive explicitness on the financial performance of the firm. And what is very interesting that they have found that it is an inverse U-shaped curve. This means that if your incentive contract is too explicit by having, for this KPI, this is the weight, this is the target, the threshold, this is the sliding scale. So making it very formulaic seems to be not a good idea, but also making it too vague. For example, let's develop a sustainability strategy is not good either. Yeah. So you need to find the right balance here. And for that, I have a very interesting example, which is a lighting company, a Dutch company in lighting. This is how they include it in the long-term incentives. So they give a weight of 25% to sustainability. And they say, well, the boards, it's at the discretion of the board. So what the board does is, okay, you need to give a score here for the 25%. And do they have concrete underlying targets, quantifiable targets? Yes, they have. For example, sustainable revenues. So this is the percentage of the revenues coming from more sustainable products. And they define that. LED lamps and luminaries delivered, they have a number for that. The carbon footprint, they have a concrete target. The waste to landfill, they have safety, safe and healthy workplace. So you see here they have 6 measures. What they are not going to do, they are not going to say those 25% divided by 6 means something like 4% per measure. No, they are not going to do that. They say it is at the discretion of the board. Yeah, so the board takes a look at, okay, this is the overall picture. What is our opinion, result versus target? And that is what we are going to say. So this gives a level of board discretion. Another, and this is the last one, example is Carlsberg Group. They start with what is called, and it's a very interesting concept, it's the Materiality Matrix. So they take a look at what are key issues in sustainability from the perspective of my stakeholders. And there you see, for example, sustainable packaging is an important one, employee health is an important one, other ones are consumer information, but then they look at the impact, the importance for the stakeholders, but also looking at the filter for the business. And by that, they say water stewardship, climate change adaptation, energy and carbon consumption, diversity. These are key measures for them. And then they make targets based on that. And it's called towards zero carbon footprint and so on. And then you see here, and that is my last slide, that, well, 20% of the short-term incentive looks at the performance vis-a-vis the sustainability strategy. Yeah, and that is in fact how they do it. I will leave the up to you. These are the findings of the study we have done with you. I will leave that as an introduction for the discussion. So thank you for your attention. I just wanted to dump you into the sea of sustainability targets.
Thank you very much, Xavier. Now we switch into some questions, whether there are questions. You probably know that you can have your hand like this and say, okay, I want to ask something. Are there any questions? Then I ask you, Xavier, I understood that it's really difficult to define the targets and that it's necessary to have experts and also a council. Did I understand it right, that it is one of the challenges, the big challenges of bonification for top managers?
Yeah, and well, in fact, all studies show that. I have seen a study done by a party lately, and there again, it was very clearly at the top level, yeah, which targets can we use, how to set the targets. But then I would like to refer to the example of Carlsberg, where that company has first looked at what are material topics for us. And then they came across the fact that the water use, the packaging, the energy use, that these are really the key issues for them. And that is what they are going to look at. So it's really that prioritization which is key. It's impossible, and it would also be even stupid to say, well, let's try to develop a whole formula with all different sorts of financial KPIs, share price KPIs, sustainability KPIs, because that way you are going to make it overly complex. And that in fact takes the assumption that you can just program your top executives, that you can just say, okay, I put it in a bonus formula, I press enter, and then they are going to do it. Now, I know that a key challenge there is for listed companies that proxy advisors, they really want only those very formulaic systems, which, as we have seen, is not the best way to do it. It's really about taking a look at what are the priorities, set targets on that, but do not make a very direct mathematical link between each of these targets and the bonus formula. No, take a look at the board should use its discretion. The board should take a look at the whole picture in sustainability, rather than just saying we use 15%, and then of that basket, we are going to use smaller measures. That is not going to work.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, a little bit shorter answers, Xavier.
Sorry.
Because our time budget is not so big. Michael Kocher, you had a question.
Yeah, so first of all, Xavier, really interesting presentation, I must say. And I would agree to many of the things you have been mentioning. Where I still have a question mark is related to the link, the direct link between the KPI definition and bonification. I'm a strong believer that nowadays you motivate people, no matter which rank in the company they have, that it's more about purpose and less about bonification in general. So I agree, we need to define KPIs just to create awareness, but it will not motivate on the long run if this is part of the incentive scheme. At least that's my thought, but maybe you can correct my impression overall.
No, I'm not going to correct your impression. I'm going to be short because because this is a very interesting topic. And of course, here I only focus on incentive systems. If we broaden the scope, we have done a couple of years ago, we have done a study with CEOs, and what we have clearly seen is that what really counts is, as you mentioned, and that's for all layers in the organization, that's purpose and that's challenge, and that's also the relationship with the board and the supervisory board at high level. The pay comes later, and for me in pay the key element is fairness, and also for that reason I dare to say that we should not exaggerate the importance of those bonuses. On the other hand, we have to admit that it gives a clear signal on what is important to the company. So from a strategic alignment perspective, of course, this is not what is going to make it all happen. No, but it sends out a signal, maybe also to the investor community, that the company pays attention to sustainability. I would like to add many other things, but Birgit, I think I should stop it here, but always open to further discuss this one.
Thank you very much. Michael Kocher, later on you will have your statement about it. Therefore, I'm looking forward to it. Jens and Laura, and then I hand over to Sabine Aigner. First, Jens, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Xavier. It was very impressive. I have a question. If somebody asked me who to build up a sustainable committee, it doesn't matter how, because you mentioned it's better having a sustainable committee in the company. How would you do it? Who are the persons?
Well, of course, sustainability committee, the composition comes from the board. That means that, in fact, in the board itself, you need, I dare to say that in the board, we need to have more sustainability knowledge and competence than we have today. I was very negatively surprised. It's not more than 3 years ago that I asked an executive searcher for board members, to what extent do you get from a company the task to look for board members that have experience in sustainability? That person told me, and it was quite an important firm, they have a lot of experience, I never had this. So this was only 3 years ago the case. So I think we really need to make a shift also to educate board members, and maybe also look a little bit outside the traditional scope of people to also bring in people that have knowledge on sustainability. And also taking a look at what is important for the company, because in some companies, the environmental sustainability might be a key element. Then please look for technical knowledge on the environmental things. Don't populate the sustainability people with all the different dimensions. Again, take a look at what is key, what is the priority for the company.
Thank you. Laura?
Mute.
Laura?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had problems somehow. My connection is not stable. Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. I would be interested. I'm coming from the sustainability area, so of a big company in Austria, and I would be interested, how do you handle the fact that one thing is defining the measures, but if you have the measures, how do you handle that some managers have them more in their area of influence, yeah, in the sphere of influence than others? Let's take an example. Let's say energy efficiency, yeah. Some managers say, okay, I have a direct impact with that. I can really, yeah, take decisions which have a direct impact on that, and others not so much. So how would you handle that? Would you go for individual solutions, which makes it super complicated, especially for big companies, or what would be your approach there?
Yeah, for me, it depends on the level of people in the company. If I look at the CEO, then I think it's normal that needs to have an encompassing approach with the key sustainability measures for the whole company. I would also say that holds for the executive committee. If we go deeper in the organization, for me, it's about the word you mentioned yourself, impact and line of sight. And then I would dare to say, please take a look and put the strongest focus on the measures which are in the direct sphere of influence of those managers. So for me, it's layered. At the top, there should be the encompassing measures. If you go lower, then it should be the measures on which the person really has an impact.
Okay, thank you very much.
So thank you very much. And now I want to hand over to Sabine Aigner. Sabine, you gave us the impulse to do this, and thank you very much that you asked Xavier and that he joins us today, and yeah, that we get so much knowledge about this item. Why do you think it is so an important subject, and why did your initiative give us this initiative?
So a short narrative on that. Thank you, Birgit, and thank you, Xavier, for everything so far. I think it's initiated by some sort of dilemma. We heard a lot of hard facts, concepts, yeah, in a topic where we also have emotions and where we are crossing philosophic components, yeah. But I think we only get from A to B if we are aware that, and crystal clear, that we need to set goals, that we need to set goals newly and go into action, yeah. I think each of us has sufficient influential power to do something within his environment, to play cards within our professional and personal network and environment. It's a decade of action. We all know it. What we can do in leadership advisory is that we really challenge the situations of new hires. We are facing a moment of truth where we question the skills needed. Yeah, so how to really bring in executives who have a newly defined DNA, a different sustainability-oriented DNA, how to attract them, how to get them in. And we also hope for partnership with our clients to get sustainability leaders into the right roles. So at the end of the day, it's three questions for me. How and where to get the right people who are able to change it, but also the other way around. How to get the right roles for these people to have impact. And I'm not sure if we have the right roles right now. Yeah. And the third question is, what does success look like? How do we define performance and success for both sides? And now I'm in the topic again, how do we incentivize them? And it's not only about bonification and money, it's also about career steps, about personal rewards, awards. So there can be a lot of incentives. I'm talking about incentivation. That's so far, I think, my summary to that. That's why I brought it in to kick off that logic. Thank you.
It's very interesting, Sabine, and I noted the 3 points because I think they are really interesting, the persons, the roles, and the success. And now I want to hand over to Christine Catasta from ÖBAG. You have many responsibilities, and you have many advisory boards, and therefore you can change many things, I think. And what do you think about the input of Xavier and also what Sabine said, and how do you, what is the philosophy of ÖBAG or the rules or new things ÖBAG does?
Yes, no, thank you very much to everyone who spoke before me, because I think that is not the future, it's where we are today and where we need to set the goals. And so it's, if you take the objectives of ÖBAG, so the objective is to live in a sustainable time. And then we already thought, how can we bring it to the various portfolio companies? So we started a project where at the first step, we looked we, for example, if you take the energy company, so we looked what are the peers doing, and so how do they have in their in their system, in their remuneration system, what goals do they have, and we compared it. And for example, in the energy, so we look to the environmental, we look to the CO2 emissions, to the energy reduction, to the circular economy, other environmental goals. Then we look to the social and governance, to safety, to diversity, gender balance, employee engagement, employee training, and the others, it was digitalization and innovation. And then we compared all the peers, and we saw that in certain cases our portfolio company is good, and in others there should be an improvement. And so it is important to, and the only thing you can influence and incentivize people if you set the objectives. What we recognize that all the companies in this specific in the energy sector, they integrate already their environmental targets in the management remuneration, but what Xavier said, it's still many are short-term and not long-term. And I think the good thing, and so our portfolio companies in comparison, because in some they have been better than their peers, in other they have been worse than their peers, and they really set goals. And so I think one goal where this company is quite good was the diversity goal. So even if in the past there were only men in leading positions, so today they really looked for a woman and to replace leading position. And I think that was really a very good success already we could see. So having said that, I think it is really important to have to define the KPIs and to quantify them. And maybe the best start is to compare with the peers, and because then the company, then they know where they can improve. And so then also you can start to quantify it and to find to find a number for it, where they want to go. And the other point where I also fully agree to Xavier, it's very important because we are searching also for the supervisory board members, so that we look for supervisory board members who have a focus also on sustainability. So at least not everyone, but certain members, and to have the sustainability committee. I think that is really key to have it in the board. So these were really the steps. Not in every company it's implemented, but in most of them it is already implemented, and then it depends on the industry. How you can define the KPIs. If you go to the gaming industry, it's more the responsible gaming. But if you go to energy, it's really to look at the scope 1, 2, 3. But what we see, once you have it and you have it in your goals, and you want to achieve your objectives, then the CEOs and also the board members, then they're really focusing on it. And it needs to come top down also to the company. And that's why it's so important to have it for the board positions, because if the board really believes in these figures, and if they have the incentive that they can improve their KPIs, then immediately it's a spread to the whole company, and then the company can achieve the goals they set. So I think it really made sense. We implemented it. So the sustainability, the committee, but also the KPIs. And just currently, just yesterday, we presented what we prepared in a sustainability committee, what KPIs we think how it can be measured, and we really tried to make the comparison to the peers, and then to set the KPIs and to quantify them. I think that is the most difficult sometimes to quantify it, but that's important, because then you see what did you achieve? So it's diversity, but it's the safety, and or it's the emissions. The emissions is maybe a little bit easier because these are figures. But I think it's not just you cannot most of these figures you cannot achieve from one to the next year. So I think it's because we saw it is short term, but it should be long term, because sometimes you have to change your organization. You have to change your business model, because if you really have to look where you want to be, and you have to have a vision where you want to be in 5 years. And I think today and in my older time, we made quite a lot of service also and discussions with CEOs. And I think a couple of years ago, it was just they spoke about sustainability, but it was more, oh, someone in the company is preparing a sustainability report, and I don't know exactly the details, but we are on track. But today, if you speak to the CEOs, it's completely different. Today, they think about the strategy. Is the strategy correct? Or do I need to change my strategy? Do I need to change my business model in order to achieve those KPIs? So I think it's a tremendous change which took place during the last year, maybe 2 years, but it's a tremendous change, because you really go into the business model, and you're willing today to take the risk, and because and that's why I think it's in the heads of the CEOs that they know if they are not successful in changing the business model and in being sustainable in the future, then they will not get any financing anymore, because banks they have to fulfill all their targets with the green finance, and they will not get investors, because the investors today they really are looking what are the companies doing, what is their strategy, how do they focus on the sustainability matters. So I think it's more than it ever has been that you have the banks, that you have your investors, and at the end you can only achieve a value creation if you focus on sustainability, because also you can, if you look to the capital market, you will see where the share prices are, and if companies are outperforming or if they're low performers. So that's I think we started this initiative. We really see the success. We are not in every company where we want to be, but I fully agree with everything. I found it very interesting what Xavier and what Sabine said, because I think that is we're here the CEO for the future, and I think everyone has to change and has to be a CEO of the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina. It was very interesting, also the changing of the business models. Now I want to hand over to Michael Kocher. Michael Kocher, we had a preparation call, which was a little bit different, and I always love to have a little bit of discussion, and not that everybody says, yeah, it's clear and we will do so, and the targets are good and so on. On the one hand, of course, we want to have performance and we have to change business models, but the other question is it really, and does it make sense to have this bonification to the top management, or to all managers, or to all who are leading persons in a company? And therefore I want to hand over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I actually do not really know where to start, because I've heard so many interesting comments the last 45 minutes. And I do agree with a lot of these, let's say, remarks, but I also definitely disagree with a lot of the remarks I've heard. So first of all, I think all the companies, or the most of the companies, are on a journey, right? So, the reason why we are embracing sustainability are different. And I mean, what I just heard the last 5 minutes, the motivation is of a lot of managers, and I agree, are related to the fact, that banks or investment companies are looking at the financial performance, not only at the financial performance, but also at the performance if it comes down to defined KPIs related to sustainability. But this has nothing to do with an intrinsic motivation, to embrace that topic. To, on the one hand side, satisfy the needs of the present generation, but not at the expense of future generations, right? So, and I'm saying we are on a journey because at Novartis we are really, we are going through a journey. Some of you might know that in the past we have been a very number-driven company. We are still a number-driven company, and we are looking for economical or seeking for economical success. But the way we want to achieve that is really different. So we have a very, very young CEO. He actually started 3 years ago. Vas is now, I think he turned 42 now. The way we are interacting among each other. So there is a big initiative which is called Unbossed. So hierarchies doesn't matter that much anymore. It's about team success. I mean, our incentive system actually changed dramatically. This year, individual performance almost doesn't count anymore. It's more about the team success overall. And there are a lot of attributes which are not related to straight financial indicators, which count more than financial indicators. I must say that I have some difficulties with this because I've been grown or raised in environments where the financial performance has been everything. So I'm completely, or I'm socialized in a different manner. But we are getting there. We are having a purpose. We want to actually rethink, or we want to think medicine differently. We want to improve and extend patient life. We want to give access to our products. And I could continue to talk about our purpose and our mission statements, but the interesting thing is that people really feel like this. And we at Novartis, we distinguish actually between 3 dimensions. No surprise, as all the others are doing it most probably. If we are talking about sustainability, we are distinguishing between the economic sustainability, ecological sustainability, and social sustainability. And I would love to share a couple of things with you. So basically, I mean, if we are talking about ecology, I mean, these are actually examples you find everywhere, but we want to be carbon neutral starting from 2030 onwards. We have planted more than 15 million trees until today. We want to be plastic neutral until 2030. So all our primary and secondary packaging are going to be plastic free. And we want to be water neutral until 2030. So these are some very tangible targets actually, and everybody is measured against this, is going to be measured against this in the future. If we talk about, how we always say, the social sustainability, I just wanted to highlight again, what we do actually for our employees and what we are going to do for our patients. So we are nurturing an access to medicine program actually for underdeveloped countries. So the portfolio with this, it's a portfolio of medications. It's 15 products where regions, not people, where patients and regions are getting access for free. And it's a great success actually. We're fueling regions, or we do have access to 15 million patients just in the underdeveloped regions where the people get access to this portfolio for free. Internally, we have actually started a program called Choice with Responsibility, which actually means that the employee can decide from where he wants to work without management approval. It's an interesting exercise. It's also a journey, and a lot of controversial discussions are taking place, and we are actually embracing these controversial discussions because we think that this is the future of working. And if we want to attract talent, if we want to attract the right talents, that's the way to go. Parental leave in Austria, for example, 14 weeks of parental leave across the globe for all our employees. This and obviously being fully paid. Also a way to attract actually our attract talents. And last but not least, if it comes down to the bonification topic, so the ECN, so the Novartis Executive Committee, actually has to deliver on a couple of sustainability targets. 60% of the incentive is actually related to financial measures and 40% to strategic measures. And out of the 40%, 20% are related to ESG KPIs. So overall, it's just 8%, so not a lot, which actually supports a little bit what I have been saying initially, that we as a company take this very serious. It's actually part of our daily discussion. But if we look at the bonification, it's just a very low percentage, and actually it's only for the top executives through. All the others at this point in time, you know, their incentive is not actually, or doesn't correlate to the sustainability or KPIs. Yeah, that's it basically from my side. So maybe the last statement, again, I'm a strong believer, purpose and passion should be related to this topic. And it needs to be an intrinsic motivation of the entire organization and not only of the top. And if you do that, the financial performance is going to come on its own, and the company is going to be very, very successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, it's interesting because the purpose and the passion was in our preparation call the main point, and therefore, yeah, bonification is good, but when it's not so a high percentage on sustainability goals, of course, yeah, then the question is, does it make any sense, or is it useful or not? Before we start into the whole discussion, but we don't have so many minutes left because we will end at 7:30, and everybody who knows me knows that I will cut the meeting or the event really at 7:30. Xavier, we did a study, and many of us are part of this study, and maybe you can tell us what is the view on it, and what did we say?
Yes, thank you, Birgit. I'm directly going there. I can already summarize. So what we have found clearly is that there is a clear ambition, so that you are quite ambitious towards the bonification for sustainability. And the second point I want to make is that there also seems to be a gap with how we see companies give bonification for sustainability compared with what you want. So let me jump to the results of the survey. And thanks again for responding massively on it. So what we firstly did is, well, we made a list of different types of sustainability measures. Let's call it the key types of sustainability measures. And we asked you, this is the percentage out of you that said this is an important measure to include into bonification, and you see that it is clearly focused on environment. So it's almost 90% out of you who say we need environmental KPIs. This is already a gap with what we see in practice today, because I repeat the example I have given to you, or the results of our own analysis, being that not more than 15% of the companies already have environmental KPIs. On the other hand, we see that here employee engagement related KPIs also 64% out of you is saying it's important, but this is a clear gap with the environmental ones. But today we see that this is the most prevalent one. So this is already an interesting gap between practice and in fact what you say, because everything I'm going to tell you now is what you say and is about your preferences. Next point is, this is the average score on the different statements. And here you, in fact, you agree that yes, we need sustainability indicators. So this is a no-brainer. You say we need sustainability indicators, yes, but also how to do that in practice is different compared with what we see today. Because, for example, you also quite agree that the targets need to be set over a multi-year period. If I go back to my example of Carlsberg, and it was interesting to also see the Novartis case, Carlsberg, they also have targets towards 2030, but they have two. They say we have the targets towards 2030, which is a long-term time frame, but we also have targets for a 2 to 3 year time frame. So they really combine it, because otherwise it might look a little bit like a free lunch. And also you say, notwithstanding the fact that you say that environmental KPIs are very important, you also say, well, it should not mainly focus on it. So we really need to have a balanced set of it. Yeah. And apparently, and this is an interesting one, you, being the executives, do not really have the feeling that it is such a difficult job. So maybe, I do not know, but maybe there is a difference in vision between the board and the top executives themselves, because maybe the top executives have the feeling that, no, this is possible. The concerns you have, yes, some of you say we are missing data sources. So that's an important one, having the data, how to measure, but also who decides on the targets. And normally it should be the board. What we see in practice is that it is the board based on a proposal by the top management. And then a very important one also, this is such a wide field, one has to focus. If we look at the weighting of the different KPIs, again, this runs against practice we see today. Most companies today are here within the range of a weight of 10 to 20%. What you tell us is that for the short-term incentives, we should be somewhere between 10 and 40%, but the weight should be much more for the long-term incentives. Today, we see that only 1 out of 4 companies have them in LTI. And for the ones who have it, the weight is limited. Here you say we need more. So here, there is a clear difference between practice and your ambitions, which are way higher. Then a couple of ideas or suggestions you proposed. One of these ideas was, well, take a look first at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, because these can serve really as a source of inspiration. Another example is, this is the long-term incentive plan of Continental. Of course, you could go for sustainability measures with a weight, but what you see here is that there is a multiplicator. So here you see LTI, it's being adapted as a multiplicator for the relative TSR sustainability. That is also possible. And then to conclude, and I think this is really a key dimension, somebody is taking a broader perspective, saying the employees also have to understand why the indicators are of relevance. And this is the strategic dimension. And I clearly agree with this. It's better to have 1 or 2 really important KPIs than 10, which cannot be focused upon. So that's it for related to your input.
Thank you very much, Xavier. Now I want to hand over to Lukas Kienzl. Lukas, we have a big project about CO2 emissions, and we will have a press conference next week. And what do you think when you see these statistics? I hope you are on and hear me and can put something into our discussion, because you see what we all together thought about it. It's the main point, and we will present it next week. And maybe you say, okay, yeah, that's good, because we want to have also some performance.
I'm not entirely sure if I have understood your question correctly. Can you repeat it again, Birgit?
Yeah, what do you think about this statistics about that the biggest part was about the CO2 emissions, and yeah, and we have a big project, and maybe you can tell us about your thoughts when you saw this big part and when you think of our project. Do you think that's good, that the top management should be measured on this item, or do you think, yeah, it's one of the aspects, but maybe you can tell us also about our target next Tuesday?
Yeah, of course. So we are working on a CO2 paper to push the idea of CO2 pricing in Austria and to bring it into the political discussion. That's an issue we are currently working on, and that's an issue that's on top of the mind of a lot of our CEOs as well. So I think it's quite important also to have the performance of CEOs measured against this issue. But on the same time, another aspect is that the CEOs also need the backing from the whole company behind this. I'm not entirely sure if I have understood your question quite correctly, so I'm sorry if it's quite...
Yes, it's okay. It's about the carbon emission, and it was the main point, and therefore I wanted to ask you what you think about it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I want to hand over to Agatha Calandra. I don't know whether you are here, but I hope so. You are very active in also doing studies and so on. What do you think about, is Agatha here? I'm not sure. I saw her in the beginning. Yeah, yes, but I don't know whether she hears me. Yeah, because she does also many studies, but maybe somebody else wants to give to ask something. We have also representatives of ÖBAG here, and also from other companies as Asfinag, Mr. Höllmüller. Maybe you have a question, or others. And yeah, welcome to ask some questions, if you dare to do so.
If I may, Joachim Burger from Ecolab. I would be interested if there's any research or any study done on this aspect that was mentioned on the power of the purpose versus the power of incentivization. So in other words, I mean, this sustainability goals, most of them are very long term. Then in a corporation, you have leaders being in their role for 2 or 3 years, probably not, long enough to really make an impact on a 10 years goal. So the purpose still remains, the purpose stays. So anybody who can comment on that?
I think Xavier, you want to say something?
Yes, with pleasure. So what we see, in fact, we have done a study on what really drives employee engagement, and in fact there is a very clear top 3. So the 3 key elements there are the challenge. Another element is participative management, which is, by the way, also an interesting link with sustainability, so that people can really participate, people are being heard. It's about inclusion. And also the element is about the reputation of the firm and the pride to work for the firm. And so I think that is purpose a much more powerful motivator than incentives? Then let me be very clear on it. The answer is yes, and all studies show it. Then, of course, you could ask yourself the question, why do we need to have those sustainability KPIs? By the way, I once had a talk with Paul Polman, the former CEO of Unilever, and Paul Polman was telling me, he asked me to give some comments on his executive pay systems. And I was saying to him, I find it a bit strange that you pay that much attention to sustainability, but you do not have it at that moment in time as a KPI in your incentive system. And he told me, well, I see what you mean, but I don't need to have it because sustainability should be in our DNA and we should not reward people for sustainability. But of course, I think there is a balance between the two. What we see is that there is quite some pressure from society to make it hard, because some people say what gets rewarded gets done. So walk the talk. If you really pay attention to sustainability, please also take a look and also include it in your incentive system. So and also you have the quite strong, I would say, messaging by the means of bonus systems, because if it is in there, it also shows that it is proven to be important by the company. But let me be very clear, purpose is way more important than pay.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Burger. Do we have another question? You can also give me a sign if you want to ask something. Michael Kocher, you only said it's okay, what Xavier said. Did I interpret?
Yeah, sorry. I pushed the wrong button. No, you know, I'm a supporter of the purpose statement, so thanks for this.
Perfect. Yeah. Do we have another question? I wrote in the chat that we will put the presentations on our homepage, and we will send you the link to it. And thank you very much, Xavier, that we have all these informations and that we can give it to our members and to all the people who are interested in bonification of our group and our club. At 7, you had to leave at 7. Okay, Agatha, no problem. Yeah, then I want to close up the round, and therefore I want to hand over another time to you, Christine Catasta. Was something new today? Was something where you can say with your big experience and your big management skills, can you say there was something new and you can take it with you and can tell in the ÖBAG boards about it and can say, okay, CEOs for Future makes sense, and Xavier had a good story and everybody who was in had a good story, and there we learned something. Is there anything you take with you?
Yes, no, thank you, Birgit. Yes, I think it was very interesting what everyone said, and I think it was very structured, and I listened very carefully when Xavier had his presentation, and I have the recording, and so what I will do, I will also share with my colleague, the group we are working on it, because I think you had really wonderful points, Xavier, and I never saw it as structured as you did it, with all the studies you had and all the points, and so that was really great, and it's a great input.
Xavier, do you want to answer to it?
Thank you. No, but what I want to add myself is that again, we get a lot of questions on yes, how do we have to do it? So we see that board members are really anxiously looking for it. Why? Because they're also under pressure by investors who also changed gear. Because until recently, proxy advisors were not in favor of non-financial KPIs because they were thinking, well, that will be very easy to reach and we cannot control it and so on. And that has changed a lot. So board members are looking for it. For me, a key element, again, is the strategic link and the prioritization. So rather than just saying we are going to add a couple of measures, let's really take a look at what is key to the company. And for that reason, it is a pity that from time to time you see, let's add 2 sustainability KPIs and then we're done. No, in fact, you need to go back to your stakeholders, think about, communicate with them, what is key, what are key value creators for the company, and that can lead to innovation. And then in the end, you might say, okay, but as a consequence, we also need to find these priorities into our incentive systems. And that is the right way to go. And from time to time, I see it the other way around. Let's first have sustainability KPIs. And then I would say, hopefully afterwards, the focus on sustainability starts. But of course, the world is how it is. We need to start somewhere. And as long as we focus on sustainability, where we might start, it is okay. We have to take into account the maturity level of the company.
I think it was a very good point where you said also, I think we need to change the culture. And I think that was also something you mentioned. And I think that was also one very important takeaway. Because not only the KPIs, so it's the whole culture you have to change.
What I think what for me was very positive that you said it's so structured, Christina, because I think that's a compliment, Xavier, because then we have orientation and then maybe we can make step for step to improve it and to have these key performance indicators. Michael Kocher, was something also for you in this discussion? And do you think, okay, I can take this with me, not only performance or purpose and passion, but also some new things about bonification? What do you think? Was something in it?
No, absolutely. And I can only underline it. It has been really a very structured and informative presentation. So I will definitely share this, and yeah, very interesting. And again, I mean, it also showed me the entire discussion that there are different approaches, right? Some parties do think it must come from the top. Others do think it's more a bottom-up approach, maybe, or maybe both. That's interesting. And what also could be maybe an interesting discussion is that focusing on sustainable KPIs, that this might nurture innovation overall, right? Because if you think about production, for example, you look at processes whatsoever. So we really, I don't want to say by coincidence, but we really found some very interesting insights, by fueling that topic, which also led to a higher economical success.
Okay. Sabine, what do you think, and what's your conclusion about the first discussion about the bonification? Because it won't be the one and only. It will be a dialogue about it. And what do you think about this discussion?
It's not the first and the only, hopefully, because this is also what I felt. Yeah, I think whatever we mean and whatever we prioritize, be it purpose, be it hard facts-driven incentive systems, including sustainability goals, I think it needs to be a mix. And I'm extremely grateful that the journey within getting better tools, how to do it if we decide to have an incentive system based on that, which we didn't have a while ago. Yeah, having that tool at hand. So it's also a journey that develops. And I think this is already a huge progress for today. I'm very happy that we agreed on journey, we agreed on evolution, we agreed on start somewhere. Yeah, and I think this is exactly the best I could wish for this event. Thank you.
Okay, then we are very punctual today because it's 6 minutes before our closing. And if nobody wants to ask anything and everybody has to think about all the inputs and the structured things, Xavier, you told us, then I say thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much that you are interested in this subject, because we as a club want to have a big performance in sustainability, and we think that the top management and the leading persons are key for change process. On the other side, we are also a club where we say we have to discuss with the young people, because the young people have the perspective to tell us how they see our future, and then we have the responsibility to change it. And there, the top management has the power to do so. And therefore, Xavier, thank you very much. Sabine, thank you very much that you took this initiative. And Christina and Michael, thank you very much for your input. And we say goodbye. Next week we will be in the press. Please look at it and tell everybody that it's important to have a position on the CO2 pricing, because our government will also communicate in the end of the week in Austria. And therefore it's important that the economy says what we think about it. And CEOs for Future will have this paper done by Christiane Brunner and Wolfgang Anzengruber, and Lukas Kinzel coordinated everything. In this sense,
sorry to interrupt,
yeah?
Birgit, but I just included the white paper on KPIs, financial, but also sustainability ones in the chat box, so you can download it normally.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And we will do so also on our homepage, and we'll send you a link. And we recorded the whole call, so you can distribute it, and we will put it on YouTube. You will have the opportunity to distribute it to colleagues who are also interested in this field, but it won't be the last event. It won't be the last discussion. We will do it again. And I say thank you very, very much for your engagement, for your interest and awareness, and have a nice evening and have a nice day. Okay, bye-bye.
You too,
Thank you very
Birgit.
much.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you very much.